published his first book, Symphony of Your Life, Restoring Harmony.
How do I turn it on?
It'll be for sale at the back of the room after his presentation. Please help me welcome our speaker, Mark Howell at Hardcastle.
Why do you do what you do? Okay, that's fair. I had a chance to ask myself that question. 2.5 years ago, I was over in Moab, Utah with a bunch of my friends that ride mountain bikes. We were on our first ride of the trip. Happened to be the Porcupine Rim Trail. Any mountain bikers here? Do you know Moab? Anybody? Yeah, we got a couple. Good. It's a great ride. And we've been freewheeling down the slope for about 45 minutes. And at that point, the trail crosses a paved road. So I skipped up onto the pavement and back down into the dirt on the other side. And that's when I noticed just a little challenge in the trail. I didn't think much of it. Didn't even slow down. But I do remember thinking to myself, maybe I have to jump that or go around it, as you do with mountain biking. It's the last thing I remember from the ride. The next thing I remember is waking up, looking up the clear blue sky, still on the trail, wasn't on my bike anymore. I wasn't moving. In fact, I couldn't move my right arm. It was paralyzed. I was about to find out that my neck was broken. Why do you do what you do? I'll come back to that in just a minute. First, I want to stop and pause to say thank you. First to Chet. Chet, it's been a pleasure getting to know you and working with you. Folks, I work with a lot of program chairmen around the Front Range as I go around and speak to city groups like this. And I just want you to know what a treasure you have over here at Chet Myers and how he organizes these things. It's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you so much for what you do. For those of you who are here today, my hat is off to you. You know, Woody Allen says that 80% of success in life is showing up. And as I go around, as I go around the Front Range, again, speaking to civic organizations, I've learned, one of the things I've learned is that Rotarians are the kind of people who show up. You guys are not coasting, you got your oars in the water, you're out there getting it done. You're the kind of people that I like to hang out with. So thank you for letting me share some of your time here today as you go about the business of composing, rehearsing, and performing the symphonies of your lives. So why am I here today? What do I hope to accomplish on your behalf? Well, the book that Jim mentioned so kindly a few minutes ago sort of rose of its own volition out of the ashes of the Great Recession several years ago. And even though the recession now is way behind us, it never ceases to amaze me as I speak to organizations how often people still express the reality that they're dealing with the aftermath of those dark times, you know, those years ago. So many people still, their lives are still a little bit out of tune. They're still in a place of challenge or transition. And I've gotten to know very briefly some of you here in the room, and I look around and see all these smiling faces. I think that reality probably doesn't apply to many of you here in the room today. But I know there are people close to you that it does apply to. So I found it's been helpful to talk about those things. Maybe think together a little bit about how maybe we could restore some of that harmony. And maybe rethink a little bit about a sense of purpose and why we're here on this planet. So that's what I'd like to do today. Is it okay if we do that? Spend a few minutes thinking about that together? Okay? Yeah. Thanks, Bob. Whatever. Let's start by talking, I'd like to say a little story about a friend of mine from the Colorado Children's Chorale. His name is Travis Branner. Travis, several years ago now, heard about a group of kids, actually up there in this part of the city, who were looking for a way to express themselves musically. They wanted to do that, but didn't have a vehicle. And Travis, being from the Children's Chorale, that's what he does. He formed a choir for them, to give them the opportunity to express themselves musically. So for a couple of years, they did that. Middle schoolers, high schoolers, non-audition, anybody who expressed a desire to sing, a love to sing, was welcome to come and join. They didn't have to demonstrate any kind of real ability. So for a couple of years, they sang the music, I call it music, of their youth culture, rap, hip hop. I see a few grins out there. Sometimes I get a little bit more of a laugh from that. But so they did that. But after a couple of years of that, Travis, being the classically trained musician that he is, decided it would be good for them to be exposed to more of a traditional stand-up kind of choral music situation. So he asked me to come up and prepare 3 pieces for them to do in their November concert a couple of years ago that were more traditional kinds of music. So I did. I went up there. Now, I had a couple of challenges around that. The first was to find 3 traditional pieces that would be accessible to these enthusiastic young musicians who liked to sing but didn't really have any training. And then the second thing was, the name of the choir, I think I mentioned, maybe I didn't, is the 303 choir. Everything that they do has something to do with the Denver area. It's part of the shtick of the organization. It's part of the fun that Travis has with the organization. Everything they do has to arise out of Denver. So I had to find 3 pieces that were accessible and 3 pieces that had something to do with Denver. Now, when they're doing rap or hip hop or those other folk songs kind of things, Travis actually frequently has the musicians come up and interact with these kids. They come up and spend time in rehearsal. Sometimes they actually do weekend retreats with them. But all their music comes out of Denver. So those were my 2 challenges. Well, it just so happens that several years ago, I lived in Omaha, Nebraska. Well, when I was there, I was in a choir that was conducted by a then up-and-coming composer, conducted by the name of Randall Stroop. And through that, he and I became friends. We maintained the friendship over the years. And Randall, before that, actually lived here. So Travis and I sat down and thought, how cool would it be if we could find 3 Randall Stroop pieces that we could use for this set of 3 for these kids. And we were successful and went through his catalog, found 3 pieces that would work. Well, the next challenge then was to figure out, okay, how are we going to get Randall Stroop to come over and interact with these kids the way the rap artists, the hip hop artists do that. So I got in touch with Randall, and now, when I knew him before, he was up and coming. That was a couple of decades ago. He's no longer up and coming. If you know anything about choral music, you may recognize the name Randall Stroop. He has arrived. Randall is now internationally known. He's sold literally millions of copies of his music, his settings, and various points. So we tried to mesh the schedules and couldn't do it. When Randall's not over in Stillwater, Oklahoma, teaching music students, he's traveling around the world doing musical events. But we did find one evening when he was going to be in his home office, and we were going to have a rehearsal. So we set up a Skype session. Randall agreed to be part of the rehearsal through Skype. So the evening came, we set up the rehearsal, ordered a bunch of pizza up to Travis's house. Next thing I know, here's Randall Stroop on the computer screen in Randall's living room. And he's ready to interact with all these middle schoolers and high schoolers who really had no idea about the significance of the opportunity that was in front of them. Now, I tried to prepare them for that. I asked them to come with questions that were appropriate for a composer of Randall's stature. And they didn't disappoint. First question out of the chute from a middle schooler. Randall, why do you compose music the way you do? How's that for a question from a middle schooler, for an internationally known composer? Well, Randall didn't miss a beat. He said, it's all about the text. Whenever I sit down to write, in fact, whenever any good composer sits down to write music, what they want to do is they want to write music that enhances the text, that brings out, every note, every harmony, every melody, every rhythm brings out the meaning that the poet is trying to convey to the audience. Next question. Randall, one of the pieces we're going to do is your setting of Robert Frost's poem, The Pasture. Why did you choose that poem? You believe that from a middle schooler? Great question. Again, Randall didn't miss a beat. He said, Robert Frost has always been one of my favorite poets. And The Pasture has always been one of my favorites of his poems. The text goes like this. I'm going out to clean the pasture spring. I'll only stop to rake the leaves away and wait to watch the water clear. I shan't be gone long. You come too. Well, on his face, it describes just this mundane chore out on a farm, right? But it's not about cleaning the pasture spring. It's about creating and maintaining relationships. So Randall said, I wanted to write music that would emphasize the relationship aspect and bring out that last phrase of the poem, you come to. So they asked a couple more questions, and then we sang The Pasture for Randall via Skype. Randall's over in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Here we are up in Arvada, Colorado. It was a magical experience, but then he was gone. It was over. So what did these kids learn that night? They learned this. In music, it's all about the text. It's all about enhancing the text, bringing out the meaning for the intended audience. So I'm going to ask you another question now. Are you enhancing the text as you write your symphony? Are you enhancing the text for your children, for your grandchildren, helping them understand what's going on around them? Are you enhancing the text for your husband, or your wife, helping them understand the depth of your relationship? Are you enhancing the text for your colleagues, your co-workers, indeed your subordinates, the people that you're leading as they achieve in their work life? Are you enhancing the text? What text are you enhancing? Best of all, what text are you writing as part of your symphony? About this time last year, I was on a layover in Honolulu, and walking down the beach just about sunset, as I like to do. Yeah, I know somebody's got to do it. As I walk along the beach, I realized there's a lady walking along beside me, and every few steps she'd bend over, pick something up, put it in a piece of palm bark that she was carrying along, and I walked along with her for a little while, and she'd bend over, pick something else up, palm bark. Eventually, my curiosity got the best of me, and I got to ask, what are you picking up there? She looked right at me. She said, I'm picking up gold. But okay, they've got crazy people in Honolulu, too. I had everything else to do, so I walked along with her a little bit further. We had a bit of a conversation. A few minutes later, she said, I've got a confession to make. I'm not really picking up gold. Yeah, I didn't think you were. So what are you picking up? She says, I'm picking up diamonds. Okay, crazier than I thought. Well, we went on down the beach a little bit more, and the more I got to know her, the more I realized she was obviously being tongue-in-cheek. She wasn't crazy at all. This particular woman, several years before, had established, she was now running a high-end $1 million swimwear business that had franchises as far away as Tokyo. Not crazy. Well, next thing I knew, she was inviting me up the cliff down the road to her house to meet her husband. Got to know them both, and I've enjoyed building the relationship, the friendship that we have over the course of the last year. So now whenever I'm on a layover in Honolulu, I make a point of grabbing a bottle of wine, going up to Gordon and Evelani's house, and we have dinner. Well, over the course of this year, I've realized, I've learned, that they are, in addition to running this international swimwear business, they're also very successful network marketers. Okay, so one of these layover nights, I was up there having dinner with them. It turned out that was going to be one of the nights that they were going to have one of their home opportunity meetings. So I sat through the opportunity meeting, and then at the end of the meeting, Gordon did something I'd never seen before. He looked out over the room and he said, the business part was over. He said, folks, I'd love it if every one of you had joined my organization tonight. But more than that, what I hope for each of you in this room is that you have success in life. Then he went on to say, so often I observe that as I talk to people, they haven't really defined what success means. They wouldn't know success if it slapped them in the face. So he says, I've come up with this list of 6 questions that would allow you all to define what success means in your lives. So I took those 6 questions to heart, and I brought them home. And I go around and I offer them to other organizations all up and down the Front Range, and I'd like to offer those 6 questions to you now. So if you're a note taker, this is the point where you take out a pen. Gordon said, in a world in which I cannot fail. Question number 1. What do I want to do? Well, that's your bucket list, isn't it? Do you want to take a stroll along the Great Wall of China? Do you want to stand underneath the Eiffel Tower in Paris? You want to drink something exotic out of pineapple and Honolulu? What do you want to do before you're done? In a world in which I cannot fail, question number 2. What do I want to be? Well, that's your legacy, isn't it? That's how you want to be remembered. I've got 4 kids. I think he was the best father any 4 kids could ever hope to have. That's how I want to be remembered. He was a mentor for young singers in the Colorado Children's Chorale. He was an author. What do you want to be? How do you want to be remembered? That's question number 2. Question number 3, what do I want to have? Well, now this particular question can get a little sticky sometimes. We all have an idea of what a reasonable car or a reasonable house would look like. Beyond that, sometimes we can get a little intimidated by how much wealth it's really okay to have. There was a movie several years ago starring Michael Douglas. He was a big businessman in New York. Help me out here. What was that movie where he was on? Wall Street, thank you. And what was his character's name? Do you remember? Gordon Gekko. You're real familiar with this movie. This is good. And he had a signature phrase. Go ahead. What was it?
Fantastic.
Greed is good.
Greed is good. That's right. That's not us. We don't want to be thought of as Gordon Gekko characters. We don't want to be thought of as people who accumulate stuff for stuff's sake. But when you pair question 3 with question 4, that question 3, what do I want to have, it takes on a little bit of a different flavor. Question 4 is this: what do I want to give? Now, I know that Rotarians spend an awful lot of your energy and your time gathering resources, fundraising, so that you can turn right around and plow those resources back into the communities that you serve. Jamie, I've so enjoyed hearing about the mission that you founded, how many years ago now? 25 years ago? You go to the Philippines to do surgery for cleft palates and that kind of thing. Awesome. Awesome. But that's so typical of what I've learned that Rotarians, that's just what Rotarians do. What do I want to give? Wouldn't it be great if we as individuals could have that kind of impact on ideas that are important to us as individuals? What do I want to have? What do I want to give? Question number 5. How do I want to spend my time? How much time do you have? May 17th, 2012, I was 53 years old. The actuaries would have told me I was going to live into my 80s. I had more than 30 years left to finish that book. It's back there. Or to paint my masterpiece, to compose my symphony, more than 30 years. On May 18th, lying there on the trail, my symphony lying in the dust beside me, unfinished. My time is up. Why do you do what you do? Maybe more to the point, why are you doing today what you're doing today? Question number 6. With whom do I want to spend my time? I've heard it said that 95% of our happiness in life comes from being married to the right person. I found the opposite to be true as well. 95% of our misery in this world comes from being married to the wrong person. Polite laughter. I'm going to have to look at my delivery. Okay, that's a little better. But that idea aside, the point of the question is to remind us to gather around ourselves people who enrich our lives, who enhance our lives, who encourage us to be the best, most successful, happiest human beings that we can be. And at the same time, to eliminate from our lives those toxic personalities, you know who they are. The ones that attach themselves and just suck away your life force. It's okay to release them to the universe with a blessing. You don't have to have them. With whom do I want to spend my time? 6 questions. Define your success. To define your text of your symphony. Woke up on that trail, my nose and mouth filled with the dust of the Utah desert. It was up to the next group of riders to come along, find me there on the trail, initiate the rescue. Pulled out their cell phones, called 911, got an emergency response, and chaos ensued. Involved getting the paramedics up to me on the trail, me on the backboard, into the ambulance, down the hill to the Moab emergency room, where we found out about the broken neck, the x-rays. But since x-rays don't tell us everything we need to know about soft tissue damage, they couldn't determine how badly my spinal cord was damaged. All they knew was my neck was broken and my arm was paralyzed. So they decided they better figure that out. So they decided to evacuate me on a Flight for Life helicopter up to Grand Junction, put me in an MRI machine. So they wheeled me out to the helicopter, again strapped me down. Helicopter lifted off for Grand Junction. This rescue I've described in less than a minute, several hours, as I said, of chaos. Once the helicopter lifted off, again I was strapped down, couldn't move, nothing for me to do. I was too noisy in there to talk with the paramedics. So a sense of relative calm descended on the helicopter after all that chaos, and I found myself thinking about the gravity of my situation. By then I knew my neck was broken, I knew my right arm was gone. The question that came crashing in that I could not push away was, how much worse is it going to get? So I'm going to lose my left arm too? What about the legs? Are they going to go away before I get down to Grand Junction? If you go just a little bit further down that line of thinking, you get to a pretty dark place. Let's say it out loud. I'll let you get there on your own. But suffice it to say that I knew for the first time, on a gut level, something I'd known in my head for my entire life, and that is that tomorrow is not promised. That reality hit me. I was washed over by a sense of sadness and futility because I wasn't done yet. I got 4 kids. There were things I needed to tell them about how to compose their symphony that I hadn't told them. Things about how to paint the masterpiece of their lives I had not said. There were things I wanted to do with them that I had not done yet. I wasn't done. Helicopter went on into Grand Junction, landed. Wheeled me into the MRI machine, did the test, wheeled me back out. Neurosurgeon came over to give me the news. Yeah, no fooling, Mark. Neck's broken in 5 places. C5, 6, 7, T1, T2. That's the bad news. Good news is there's no spinal cord damage. How does that work? Neck broken in 5 places, no spinal cord damage? Sounds almost like the beginning of a bad joke, doesn't it? Man with a broken neck walks into a bar. These guys don't have that. What's with these guys? That's my big punchline. Anyway, but then what about my arm? It's paralyzed. Yeah, Mark, the nerves that control your arm are paralyzed. They're bruised, way back up here at the nerve root, but it's outside the spinal column, so it'll likely recover. Sure enough, it was only a matter of hours before I began to regain function in my right hand. Well, at that point, I was given a great gift from the universe. Now, it's not what you're thinking. You're thinking, yeah, no foot in sport, you got to walk away from a broken neck. Yeah, that was a nice gift. What I'm talking about is what happened next. The neurosurgeon trussed me up in a cervical collar and said, for the next 90 days, do not take this collar off from around your neck. Whatever you do, the next 3 months, you're going to do it with this collar in place. Well, as you can imagine, that kind of cramped my style for the summer of 2012. A lot of things that I wanted to do, I couldn't do. This watershed event had brought my life to a screeching halt. So the great gift I was talking about a minute ago was the gift of stillness for a change. Anybody here ever lived in Argentina? You know, one of these days I'm going to ask that question, somebody's going to raise their hand. It lived in Argentina. Anybody ever lived in Argentina? No? Yeah, one of my colleagues at the Children's Corral is an Argentinian woman. And she tells me that in her culture, when someone has a watershed event like this, they get a new birthday. Isn't that a cool custom? A new birthday, new life. So that summer, I had all summer long to think about my new life, my new symphony. I could ask myself that question. Mark, why do you do what you do? When all is said and done and you get back on your feet, as we by then knew I was going to, is it going to be business as usual? Are you going back to your old life? Or are you going to use this occasion to make some changes, to do something different, to maybe make your life better in some way? I had 3 months, I figured it out. You know, you give a monkey 3 months and enough bananas, he'll figure it out. Don't need to take 3 months. But you know, it's been great to be with you guys here today. In just a few minutes, we're going to all go back out to our lives. We're going to go back to our families. We're going to go back to our businesses. We're going to write our symphonies. We're going to rehearse our symphonies. We're going to perform our symphonies. Got books back there. I'd love to sign a book for you, put it in your hand. But before we go, I'm going to ask you one last question. What watershed event has occurred in your life? It's brought your life to a screeching halt. More importantly, how are you responding? Because folks, it's not about what happens in our lives. It's about how we respond. So as you go back out to your lives, to compose, rehearse, and perform your symphonies, I hope you'll remember when those challenges arise. You'll remember my friend Travis Branham and Randall Struve, what he told those 303 kids about how it's all about the text. Enhance the text. You know, think about my friend Gordon up in Honolulu and his 6 questions. And as you, from time to time, have to review and reconsider why you're on this planet, think about those 6 questions and define, redefine the text of your symphony. If you'll do those things, you cannot help but have an extraordinary life. And there'll be no doubt in anyone's mind, most important, your own mind, why you do what you do. Folks, it's been a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so
How long did it take you to get your Class 1 FAA pilot's license?
This is an FAA medical designee examiner. I have to go get my get recertified every 6 months to be able to continue to fly. And that's one of the reasons it was interesting. The answer to the question is 3 months. The FAA, I guess, what I'm told is the FAA, a broken bone is a broken bone. What they were concerned about was neurological deficits. And you know, believe it or not, you can look at my helmet back there. That's the helmet I was actually wearing. And if you look at the inside, you can see it was fundamentally shattered. There are cracks all over the place. The helmet gave its life for me. The helmet was shattered and my neck bones were shattered, but there was no closed head injury whatsoever. The CT scan was completely normal. No concussion, no nothing. So that was one of the things they were interested in. They wanted to know if there were any neurological deficits that were not. So as far as they were concerned, once the bones were healed, I was good to go. So I spent 3 months, that's all it took, 3 months out of the cockpit and I was back at work.
You didn't tell anybody that you were a United Airlines pilot flying.
I mentioned it earlier.
It was in the introduction. Were you not listening there, Jack?
I fly with it occasionally. You know, Mark,
Jim, thank you, sir.
we're going to present you with a rotary coin.
Wonderful.
It says service by subs. This way you can have something to put in your pocket. Carry with you at Christmas you go through. Feel it, if I give you a ballpoint pen, you wear it out. Okay?
Jim, thank you so much. I treasure this. Thank you very much, folks. It's been a pleasure.
All right, we're going to turn this on the speed for you. I need a fine master for March 30th. Also, I think we'll award the thanks to Jerry Dell. Jerry has taken up working on our newsletter for us. So, Jerry, thank you. And Jerry, suggestions for the newsletter, how it should look, send those to Jerry or to me. With that, we're going to thank you.
How are you?
So are you the son or?
I'm a good friend.
Friend?
Alan Blyden.
Have friends.
Yeah, it is good. Hello there, how are you?
I'm fine.
I am Alan. Alan Blyden. Nice to meet you. I'm
Recording this point?
I'm his photographer.
He wanted to know he was here.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. So do you think it comes back to you, or does it go to him?